Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. Today we are going to discuss a couple of services in AWS and how to work with them in C Sharp. Okay, first Anusha, she will start with EC2, and there will be a demo, hands-on on difference between the temp storage versus the uh, EBS block storage, and then followed by S3 buckets and S3 objects, how to work with it in C Sharp .NET 6. I'll be speaking on that, and then Jagdish will be speaking on uh, uh, Elastic Beanstalk and how to deploy API into that. Okay, let me introduce today's speakers. Anusha.
Hi everyone, this is Anusha. Uh,
And yeah, go ahead, Anusha.
yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so another speaker is Jagdish.
Okay.
Hey, Jagdish.
Hi everyone, very good morning. So myself Jagdish. So I work with AS as a module lead. So I had like 11 years of experience on .NET. So today we'll have more discussion about how we use .NET 6. So and push that to the Beanstack. So the sample web API. Happy learning, guys.
Yeah. So one thing is we three are from the same company and from the same team. Okay. Okay. Anusha, you can share your screen. I'll flash it. Um,
Yeah.
we can get going. Okay. To you, Anusha.
Yeah. Today first we will discuss what is EC2 and basic components inside EC2. Okay. While creating EC2, what are the basic concepts and what are the basic parameters we give while launching an EC2 instance. So what is an EC2? EC2 is it is like a virtual computer that you define in a Amazon Web Service. So it will allow you to rent your virtual computer in AWS, and where you can run your applications and whatever you want, you can do it. And with the added advantages of like scaling, auto scaling, and all, where you will increase your memory, or you will increase computing operating system. You'll choose your own operating system, and also you will customize your storage and everything, so that it will be suitable for your application to run. And also scalability means where whenever you want more load, it will scale up your virtual machines. And whenever you don't want any I mean, whenever there is very less load, your computing power will be reduced automatically. This is called auto scaling. So this kind of added advantages will be there for using with using Amazon EC2. Okay, and these are some important features we have while using Amazon EC2. First one is global infrastructure. Global infrastructure like is like where you will replicate your instances in multiple locations, so that even if one in one region, if the data center is down, you'll be able to cope up with your web service using another region. So that's why we use multiple locations. And also high precision time with Amazon time sync service, it will allow you to no delay response. You will have your responses, and your AWS resources time will be available all the time using Amazon time sync service. And also your choice of operating system and software is like you will choose your whatever operating system you want, and whatever software you want, you will choose while launching your EC2 instance. So it is having more customizable products. So while launching your AC2 instances, you'll choose according to your needs. So that facility is there, and also cost and capacity optimization. It is like pay for what you use. Yeah, actually in AWS it is like per second billing. So whenever you use them till that second only, the billing will be added. So it is not a hour based. So you will concentrate more on your application enhancing rather than worrying about this billing and all, because it will be per second billing. So there will be no minutes and no hours gathered in that. So- And also, as I told just now, it is supporting auto scaling and pause and resume your instances. Like whenever you want to use your instance, that time you can use your instance. After that, you can pause it or hibernate it. Whenever you want the same thing, the same instance, you can resume and again you can reuse it. So these are also storage and networking is like what storage you want for your workload, how much you want, all those things you can define while launching your instance. Also, high packet per second performance. It is like because you're replicating your services with multiple regions and availability zones, and also because there are some added advantages and added things in AWS that makes your response time very low. There will be low latency, very much low latency while using these instances. So these are the some of the features that we get in Amazon Easy to Use. There will be many more, and now we will learn the basic concepts while launching Easy to Instance. What will be there inside it? So first we will go with the VPC. VPC is a virtual private cloud. So it is nothing but a virtual network where you launch your EC2 instances or any resources you launch in your VPC. So every when you create AWS account, you will be having your own VPC. That is where you launch your own resources, and this your VPC, your dedicated VPC is isolated from other VPCs. So what it is like? It is like it resembles like a traditional network where you will have your own data center. And also here it is like a traditional data center with added advantages like auto scaling and low latency, and many other advantages will be there using VPC. So what will be there inside VPC, we will just see now. So as we told just now, VPC is like a virtual network. Okay, it is isolated from all other networks. So inside VPC, we will be having subnets. So when while creating VPC, we will give some address range, IP address range. Okay, that is dedicated to our VPC. So inside VPC, we will define subnet, and this subnet is again a range of IP addresses. So in for VPC, we will give some CADR block, that is called. So we will define some IP address range. In that IP address range, some of the IP address range we will give to one subnet. So like that, there will be many subnets, and there will be many these kind of subnets will be there inside a VPC, and we will launch our instances inside this subnet. And we have two types of VPCs. After while we are creating or launching any instances, we will be having our default VPC. So we don't need to create any VPC. Actually, it will give a default VPC. Inside default VPC, we will be getting a default subnet also. So without knowing anything about VPC or subnet, about those things, we can create we can launch our instances into these subnets. Okay. Otherwise, you can create your own VPC, that is a private VPC, non-default VPC, and you can use those VPCs also. And we have to create again inside that, we have to create all the subnets and everything. And IP addressing. This is one important thing while creating or while using instances. We need to know what is our addressing. So IP addressing is like it is used for our resources to communicate. We need these IP addresses. So this IP addressing basically follows a classless interdomain routing. That is a notation. This notation will be followed by IP addressing. So how it will represent, we will see just now. There are two types of notations. One is IPv4 and one is IPv6. IPv4 is a 32-bit addressing where we have 4 blocks of 3 decimal digits. For example, say like this here, we have 10.0.1.0, like this, 4 groups will be there. And each group is ranging from 0 to 255. So each group can have a number from 0 to 255. Those are all the IP addresses in IPv4 address notation. And in the same way, IPv6 we have 128 bits. Here we have 8 groups of for hexadecimal numbers inside it. So generally we use IPv4 addressing. So here I will mostly talk about IPv4 addresses only. And in IP addressing also, because while creating VPC or subnet, we will give IP addresses ranges, right? So in giving those IP addresses also, we have 2 types of IP addresses: private and public IP address. Private IP addresses are like they are not reachable through internet. No one can reach over internet. Only within the VPC the resources can communicate. So if you want to use these private addresses to access internet, we will be having some other feature called NAT gateways, so that we can so that we can access using private IP addresses. So generally we don't use private IP address for accessing internet and all. We will not be having access also for. So for those things, and other type of IP address is public IP address. Public IP address is where we use this IP address for communicating over internet. So whenever we are creating VPC, we will be giving one default VPC, right? So in that default VPC, we will be having a internet gateway and one public IP address will be given. And also inside that default VPC, we will be getting a default subnet. That default subnet is public subnet. So using that public subnet and the internet gateway, we can access actually the internet. Okay. And these private and public IP addresses, these two are mapped using network address translation. So this is basic idea about how we are using IP addressing in these instances or VPCs or anything. And another important topics are route tables. Route table means it is just a route rules where we will be having some IP address range and where those IP address range has to directed to which resource or to which location it has to be directed. That those rules will be there. That is called one route table. So whenever we create one VPC, that VPC will be having a main route table, and also each subnet is also having its own route table. If we don't define any route table, it will adapt the route table of the VPC. That is mainly about route tables. And internet accessing, just now as we discussed, a default VPC will be having internet gateway and a public IP address. And inside that default VPC, we will be having a default subnet. That subnet, through this internet gateway, will communicate through internet. Sorry. So virtual private cloud, whatever we discussed is all about this. What is virtual private cloud? So how we will define this virtual private cloud? First, this VPC, it will spans along the total region and all the availability zones inside the region. We will see just now in a moment later what is region and what is availability zone. This VPC it will span through all the region and all the availability zones inside the region. This is because these availability zones are isolated. So even if one availability zone is down, we will be having our application up from other availability zones. That is the reason why we use multiple availability zone concept, and also sometimes we use multiple region concept too. And while creating a virtual VPC, we should give actually the CIDR block. CIDR block is nothing but a IP address range. Like this, we will give. This IP address, four group of three digits. This is IPv4 address with a net mask. This net mask means that those many, how many IP addresses are assigned to this network. Like if you are seeing 16 means there will be a formula 2 power, because it is 32 bit, it is 2 power 32 minus 16, so it is 2 power 16. Those many IP addresses from here, from 10.0.0.0, from here those many IP addresses will be assigned to this VPC. That is the meaning of this notation here, this notation. Next, VPC sizing. How we will give our VPC while creating a VPC. So here in AWS, actually we follow RFC 1918. So this is a range where we define IP addresses. So here for private network, here they have given an IP address range from netmask 16 to 28. We should give, because we will give only private IP addresses, and we should give only from 16 to 28. In between only we should define our private IP addresses. So this is RFC 1918 range that we follow. And how we manage our CIDR block. As I said earlier, the subnet is a subset of VPC IP addresses. So now I am creating a VPC. My IP addresses range is this one while creating, and secondary means after that, after creating my primary IP addresses, I want to add some more IP addresses for that. That is called secondary IP address, secondary private IP address. So I can add also. So this is called primary IP address, and this is called secondary IP address. So my subnet can have a primary, can be subset of a primary address range or a secondary address range. If you see here, see my subnet A is subset to the primary and subnet B is subset to the secondary primary. But here if you see subnet C is 10.2.00, it is subset to secondary. So like this, we can define our subnets and VPC IP addresses. So subnets, we have already seen what is a subnet, how we give IP addresses and all. So now we will discuss about subnet types. Public subnet, we have already discussed just now what is a public subnet. Public subnet is where we will connect our internet through public subnet. So a private subnet is where there will not be any internet access for this private subnet. So it will be for used for resources within our VPC to communicate with. That is a private subnet. And also, if you want to use this private subnet to access internet, we need a NAT device. And VPN only subnet is like only site-to-site VPN connection. Only through virtual private gateway we can connect this subnet. So these are the subnet types. And also these are just nothing but like VPC only. Subnet sizing is nothing but how we give our IP addresses range. Here also the allowed size is between 28 and 16 net mask. Because it is subnet to the VPC, we should make sure that it should not cross our VPC, and also two subnets should not overlap. That is the case that we have to see while giving subnet. And subnet routing is also like, yeah, we will give our, for each subnet, if you want to give any rules, we can create our subnet routing. Otherwise, it will adapt the main road table, that VPC main road table, it will adapt and it follows the same. And security. So here we have two features in AWS. So to provide more security for our VPC, that is security groups and network cases. Security groups, it will control inbound and outbound traffic, and ACLs, it will control inbound and outbound traffic for your subnets. So using these two features, we will get high security for our in our AWS instances. So now we will see what is regions and what are availability zones. Just like regions are nothing but a physical location where our data centers are placed. Okay, and so we will be having multiple data centers in one region. So what they have done is logically connected data centers. A group of data centers are defined as availability zones. So like this, there will be many availability zones in one region, and those availability zones are also, they are isolated as a network wise, and they are isolated as a, they are placed in a proper distance, so that if there is any downtime in one availability zone, so other availability zone will be up, and for that reason they are set up their availability zones at a distance of 100 kilometers. This is the basic concept of having regions and availability zones. So whenever we create any RVPC, it will be having a span of total region, and all the availability zones will be included inside that. That is because availability, the our downtime will be less. That is the reason why. And these availability zones are connected through a very secure network and very high speed, and availability will be more. So this is about regions and availability zones, and there will be another things called edge location, regional caches. Edge locations, they are edge locations or data centers. They are not data centers of AWS. They are trusted partners of AWS. So there are worldwide partners of AWS. So whenever so they have given their data center replication to these edge locations. So your instances replica will be stored in these edge locations. So if you are located in one region, the edge location, your nearest edge location will be directed. You will be directed to that edge location. So there your replica will be, your content will be cached, so that you will be having very high response, high time response, very speed response, and you don't see you see very low latency. That is the reason why they are using edge locations. That's why your nearest in edge location will cache your content. So what is regional edge caches? Regional edge caches are, it will stay in between your origin web server and your edge location. These are very big caches. So your content and your resources will be cached here for longer time, so that you don't need even more. Even with using edge locations, you will be having very high speed responses. Even because of regional edge location, you will be having even more high speed responses, and high availability also. This is all about basic concepts while launching your EC2 instance. Now we will see how to launch EC2 instance. So this is my AWS management console. Now if I go to EC2, Now I'm going to instances and launch your instance. So here we will define what operating system we want, what kind of this is Amazon machine image. So here we will select what operating system we want, what storage, what kind of network we want. All these things we will choose here. So if you see, now I'm going to select Windows. So because I'm just choosing all default values, I'm just confirming for demo purpose. So I'm using all this. Server type I'm using T2 micro. So I'm going to launch my instance. So here we have to give key pair name. Okay, because our instance, while logging into our instance, this should be protected. So we need to define some username and password. For that we need to give a name to our virtual machine. So I'm giving so create key pair. Okay, now it will, we have to save this wherever it is. We have to save this key pair, because while accessing this we need this file. Now I'm launching my instance. So it is very fast. You will see your instance is created. So I'm going to view all instances. Let me see if my instance is created or not. See here, if you see here, the instance state is still pending. So if you refresh, so while this is getting created, let me show you. So yeah,
No,
now this is in
Amisha,
running.
you
Yeah,
can select that row, and click on the check status checks tab at the bottom. Yeah, to see that those are the two pretty critical things, which are the checkings. Two checks it will do. So
yeah,
once both the checks are done, so it says that where the issue is. We can find out if at all the EC2 is not getting loaded. It could be many different reasons, but these two will give a decent amount of clue. Okay, you can do a
yeah.
refresh.
Okay. Still it is initializing.
Yeah. So once that two status checks are green,
Done. Yeah.
so yeah, you want to speak something else?
Yeah, I'll just show where we can see our VPC, how it is defining, because I
Yep.
have given all default values. So I just want to see here, it is giving one public IP address for us, and also private IP address. See, this is our VPC ID and this is our subnet ID. So here we will be having, so these are the things that I want to show actually. So here we will see what is the storage we have and network, all the public and private IP addresses created, because I have selected all the default things. So all these default things are given. So let us see if my instance is ready. No,
Need to refresh. Still
generally it
install.
will not take this much time.
Yeah, this until it does this checks, we'll not be able to log in.
Yeah,
In the meanwhile, you can speak about the key.
yeah,
So, so
yeah.
that's
I
an
can.
additional layer. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Manusha.
yeah. So yeah, key here. We for connecting, we need the key what we have generated while launching the instance. Whatever we have given that, we need that key for get, for logging into the our instance. So for that, we need to here get the password. That file, whatever is downloaded for key pair, that one we have to browse here, and we need to get our password from here. So
So
this is
that
our
file,
password. Yeah.
yeah, that file is like a keys of the kingdom. If someone gets hold of this file, they should be able to log in into your virtual machine. And this is an additional layer of security, Anusha and Jagdish. That's what I'm thinking. Because if you create a username and password, there is bright chance that someone might crack that password. But here you're not using password, you're using the key with which you will be able to log in into the virtual machine. So I see this as an additional layer of security.
Yes. And for we need to download our remote desktop file and connect it. Since I copied my password, I just paste here and go ahead, and you will be able to launch into log in into your instance. Yeah. So this is our EC2 instance. So let's initiate everything. So this is our EC2 instance what we have launched just now. So okay. Yeah, and one more important thing we need to discuss is while creating EC2 instance, we can give a storage called instance store. It's like instance store. That is, so for whenever our instance is live, for that time only our instant store is available. So whatever we store in our instance store, it is not like EBS where we will get our EBS when till the time we have our instance. But instance store is like whenever our instance is up and running, till that time only the data is available in this instance store. Otherwise the data is not available once you stop and start your instance. But for using this instance store, you need to add while launching your instance this store, and there will be some only these instance types support this type of storage, instance storage. So you need to select your server as C1 medium or these things, then only you'll be able to add your instance store. And once you store it, you can have your data in your instance store, but the availability will be like even if you reboot your instance, you will have data, but if you stop and start your instance, you will not be having your instance store data or anything. If you hibernate or if you terminate or if your drive fails in these instances, you lose your data in the instance store. Otherwise you will be having your instance store, and you can use the data. So, and how you add it and how you lose this data will, the demo will be given by Swami Garu. Yeah, over to you, Swami Garu.
Hey, thanks so much, Anusha. This was pretty good explanation about someone who's starting with EC2, uh, given a lot of knowledge into that. Okay, let me share my screen real quick and we can get going. I will share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, now.
Okay. Thanks. So, guys, like if you see the technical term which is used, uh, ephemeral storage, the instant store, like Anusha already told that when you use this instant store that is attached or married to this instance, and its life cycle depends with the life cycle of the EC2 EC2. So the moment you can't detach this. If you use this elastic blob storage, we'll see that how it will differ. If you use this elastic blob storage, like you create one of the one of this EC2, and you create a elastic blob storage, and then uh, once you want to store this storage, maybe the OS drive or the data drives, you can detach it from the existing EC2 and attach it to this something else. So, first of all, how do you find whether the local storage is available or not? So, when you come to this console, okay, let me quickly go to this console. So, I'm here in this console. I'm selecting the instant type. So if you don't see this column, so click on this settings over here, and mine I didn't see that. So if I come in here, mine was like this. So I say confirm. So I didn't see that here. So no need to worry about that. So what we can do is we can go ahead and switch this on, the local storage, and now you can see this and do this. So here it shows that local instant store. Okay, so that gives us a clue that these instances which supports the local storage. Now if you turn this back, so all these instances, so T2 nano or T A1, these sizes, even if you see this C4 extra large or C4 double extra large or 4 extra large, with 16 vCPUs and 30 GB of RAM, even those instances are not supporting. So all you need to do is filter your search criteria, ensure that it's there. So you can see that C5AD.large, it has got 2 vCPUs and 4 GB of RAM, but it supports this. Okay, that's the first point. And the second point is, how do you know uh, where is this instance store? How do you differentiate between these two? I'll quickly show that. Okay, so anyways, we are not going to create it, but just wanted to see that. uh, let's quickly go, and I'll here is that AWS marketplace AMI. Amazon machine images. So I can select anything, but uh, I wanted to select Windows for some reason. Okay, so I select this Windows over here, and now you see this. There is one volume. There are not two volumes, because by default, if you see that the instance, when we searched it, we saw that it supports the elastic blob storage as well as the instance storage. So right now it shows that only one volume, because we can come at the bottom, and let me minimize this so that I'll get some extra space. I'll minimize this also. So you can see this at this point of time, it shows this is a root volume. That means um, it's a OS disk. That's a root volume. Okay. Now, if you want to add a new volume, and even if you want to go to advanced, you'll not be able to see that the storage type. It says that it's a blob storage, which you can detach, and it's a permanent storage until that particular storage is correct. But apart from that, this is a permanent kind of thing. So now, how do we do it? We already saw that. So this is not the qualifying one. So I can see a C5AD, C5AD large. If I select this, the moment I select, you can see this here, it turns into two volumes. Okay. Now, if I change something, it goes. Now you can come back here. You can see that EBS, one is the blob storage, elastic blob, and that's the general purpose. And another thing, you can see this instance store. So you can click on the show details, where you can see that this is volume 2 ephemeral storage. That's like a temporary storage. It's pretty risky for you to add something here. Okay, that's the theory, or the internals, or the deep dive into that. So you see that that's the ephemeral store. So already created one, and by default, when you create the EC2, you'll not see the ephemeral. So you need to go to the server manager and wait for a couple minutes, because it has to identify all these things. How do you know that? What is ephemeral? You can see this Amazon EC2. That means instant store. You can see that here. AMI, um, NVMe. This one, NVMe. So that's the one which is the thing which is there here on this, and I've given a drive D to that. So 30 GB is the OS disk, which we have seen in the previous screen. Here you can see this. The 30 GB is the OS drive. Here you can see this. The 30 GB is the OS drive, and 150 GB is ephemeral storage. That's a temp storage. Okay, so let's go ahead and see the issue, or what will happen. I'm creating a simple file here, sample.txt, secret. I'm saving this, and then I want to go back and drop it the secret file here. Okay, that's cool. And what I do is I will do a reboot, restart this other unplanned. That's cool. And I can come back to my instances here. You can see this. My rest of the instances are stopped, and I can do that, reboot the instance from here also additionally, and let's wait until both the checks are passed, because this checks will give us a clue why the EC2 is not starting. Okay, systems check, and this is the instance check. So you should know that where the issue lies, whether on this side or the system side. Okay, let's try logging into this. I would say connect, and oh, I already have that RDP file. Already have the RDP file. Okay, and the password was this one. Now it's configuring, even though it's like pretty big machine. It starts pretty fast. So let's quickly go and see this. And the good thing is you can see a lot of details have been published here. It's public IP address and the instance type and availability zone, the type of architecture. A lot of things are getting shown here. And real quick, we can come and check this. Let me go to this PC. You see this when I do a reboot, whether from the RDP or whether from the instance, it it doesn't trouble me. So what I do is I close this, come back to this, and go to that instances and select the instance, and I want to stop this instance. Okay, that is stopping. Okay, so it will take a couple of minutes. In the meanwhile, we will discuss about the second session for today is the Amazon S3. So this is my GitHub profile. You guys can go grab it. I will drop it here, the link, and also I will today's session, all the demo script is here, including the samples. You guys can go grab it if you like to play around. Okay, so what are we going to do? We'll come back to this experiment. The only thing is we don't want to wait until this guy stops and reboots. In the meanwhile, we'll move a little bit further in the demo. Okay, so let's come back to the demo script over here. What are we going to do today? So as always, I'm still a learner. Apologies if I do any mistake. So let's start with this. We'll discuss, it's more of a hands-on and less of a theory, folks, because you can go and get this theory at a lot of places. And Amazon site itself has got tons and tons of documentation. So I was not interested to copy paste that and modify this paragraphs, but instead let's go and directly see the documentation there itself. But let's do a pretty much a hands-on, because every software is getting released pretty fast. So things might change, but let's see. What are buckets and objects, and how do you create buckets and objects in AWS console? Because Anusha, Jagadish, and I, we three are we worked in Azure. So when we use the terms, we might switch, instead of AWS console. Sometimes we might call portal, because in Azure we'll say Azure portal. In AWS it's AWS console. So apologies if I use the terms interchangeably. It's my mistake. Sorry for that. How do you access this objects? That's a pretty big thing, and I mean, there's a lot of things, and how do you access it using AWS CLI and the AWS Explorer, the tools. Nowadays, the tools has become very, very powerful. You don't need to get into the console itself. You can do everything from the tools. Let's explore that. And how do you work with S3 in .NET 6? Deploying a static website is a stretch goal. I think I'll do it in the next episode, because there's a lot of things to cover in this S3 itself. So instead of covering everything in one episode of 45 to 1 hour, whatever it takes, but thought of to cover in multiple sessions, so that whatever we learn to a decent extent. Okay, so let's switch the gears. So please fasten your seat belt. We will be switching the gears. Let's see that if it is stopped. Okay, that's cool. It is stopped. So I will start this instance, and I'll start this instance. In the meanwhile, let's go and get our theory, little bit of theory. And there's only piece when we'll do theory, and then never ever we'll come back. We might refer the documentation every now and then, but we'll do this one. So you can see that uh, this is an object storage. Okay, scale storage resource, and durability is 11 nines, 99.9999. Okay, store data across Amazon S3 storage classes. Storage classes we'll discuss in the next session. So we'll chew this cake piece by piece. So this is how the object storage. So S3 is an object storage. So at a higher level, we call it as a S3 bucket, and this S3 buckets will hold different objects. Okay, and there are a lot of use cases. Why do we need to create this buckets and all different things? And one notable difference which I noted, I might be wrong, but this is what uh, I made a note of that. So if you see this, I'm in instances, and here I've selected the region Ohio. So if I switch to North Virginia, and I will see only the instances which were created in North Virginia. I don't see the instances which were created in Ohio, even though this is my account. I don't see that. Okay, but whereas when it comes to S3, so when it comes to S3, you can see that it shows it as global. So that shows that even though your data is being created in a particular region, but that's the global stuff. One second, let me go back to this one. Yeah, so it's globally distributed. So that is one of the reason I think when I come to S3, it's not showing that whether these buckets, even though you can see this, which region this bucket is created. This is created in North Virginia. Rest of these buckets, which has been created in Ohio. But you can see the difference is this switch back to global. Whereas if you go to some other Lambda, Elastic, EC2 Elastic Cloud Compute, so you see that only the regional things it gets, it shows it. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, now that this has been this is up and running, let's give this another shot to go and log in. Let me go. Click on connect. RDP client, remote desktop client, and open that. Okay, so I click on that and I log into this. It comes into this. Right, so I drag it over here and let's go. You can see when I come to this PC, the ephemeral storage is gone. So whatever the secret which I was holding is gone. But in C drive, that's the EBS elastic blob storage that exists. But the ephemeral or the temp 150 or 140 GB, whatever the size it is, it's gone. Now again, you need to take an extra pain to go and enable it. But now you understood the risk. Now, as long as you're not stopping or terminating, that is gone. You can't detach it also. You can come back to the disk where you see this, that ephemeral storage exists. Now again, you need to initialize and give a volume. That's how it shows. Okay. So that's the end of the demo. So now let's purely come back to our S3 world. So this is what a little bit of theory we see that, and a lot of use cases will be there that we will come back when we do more deep dive into this S3. But today, we'll to a decent extent we'll do a lot of hands-on. So imagine it's a flat surface and everything should be unique. We'll see that what does that mean, flat surface, and it should have a globally unique name because it should not match. Sometimes what will happen is you can create a resources that will be unique to a particular region. Hypothetical example: suppose if I'm creating a virtual machine, that virtual machine should be unique in Ohio region, or it should be in Northern Virginia, or West Mumbai, or South India, something like that. But if at all it's a global resource or a global kind of service, in that case what will happen is any name you choose it, that should be uh, unique across the globe. Okay, now this we see this, it says global, whereas if you go to this EC2 instances, it is regional. So it doesn't show even if I have a new virtual machine in some other region. The proof is when we go to this Northern Virginia region, it doesn't show any instances which is there from the Ohio. But here it shows global, so it doesn't make a difference whether this particular region has been created in the Ohio or Northern Virginia region. It's global. So the name, whatever we choose it for the bucket, should be unique. Okay, let's hit the road. Let's get deep into the weeds, and we'll see what all the things we will be learning today. That's only theory. We'll come back and we'll learn as and when we'll grow old. Okay, so how do you create S3 buckets and objects in console and access it? So let me quickly go and create a new bucket. So how many ways you can access this? You can come in here. You can see that recently accessed. So you can bookmark or star it so that it shows in the recently. Else you can go and check in this services, all services here. Okay, this shows favorites, only favorites. This shows recently, and this shows all services. And if you know particularly in which block it falls, so you can specifically come down to that, or if it is something related to the storage or different things, you can go, like that S3 is falling under storage. So if you come and specifically select the storage, that shows what all the things which are available here. We'll discuss about the S3 Glacier and the management lifecycle in the next session, but let's focus on the foundations, and we'll come with the containers also. But as of now, let's stick to the game plan. This is one way to do it. Okay, recent favorites in all services. And another way is like you can plug it here. So the moment you put it in the favorites, it shows all these things, whatever you put it as your favorites. And another thing is like if I want to go and search this, you can use this one. Oh, God. Which one did I select? Okay. I can select like that. Billing. So it shows that. So if I want to go to S3, I select it. There are multiple ways to navigate. Okay, just a small tip. So come back to this S3 buckets, and let's create a new bucket. There are tons and tons of options, folks. And bucket 26 June test 001. Okay, so it says that AWS region, choose Ohio or Northern California, or wherever you want it. Asia, Mumbai, or Sydney, Central Canada. A lot of options. Some of the places where it doesn't allow, but the options where it allows, let's go and select that. And the next thing is object ownership. So who controls it? The control ownership of objects written to this bucket, right? So your ACLs are disabled. So all objects in these buckets are owned by this account. That means this IAM user. We'll come back with what is the root user, what is IAM user on some other day. But as of now, understand this. This is IAM user, and so you can see that bucket owner enforced it. So no one can access this. As of now, let's keep this block public access settings. As of now, we'll leave it as it is, and we are versioning also will come back in future. Tags we can have it, name demo 26th June. I'm keeping that, and default encryption. So something known as a server-side encryption will come and see that. So that means even if you store any of the files which has contained some critical information, you can ensure that someone steals it from the data center, still they can't read that file because that will be encrypted, server-side encrypted. We'll come back to that, and we'll learn all this object locking and other things in future. But as of now, let's go ahead and create it. So this is the step one towards the S3. So next time we'll come with something with the containers mixed with S3, Docker containers in this one. Okay, Elastic Container Service. I will run the Docker containers. Okay, now that we created the test, you can see this. See the difference. Buckets and objects are not public. You can see this. Buckets and objects are not public. That's pretty cool. No problem. Let's go here, and you can see that right now we don't have any of those files or anything. Objects are not there. This is a bucket, and objects something like a files. It's a flat structure, even though we can create folder kind of thing, but it's a flat structure. We'll see that what does that mean. So we didn't enable anything in the bucket versioning or the permissions. You can see that block all public access. That's the critical piece which we will focus on. You can get the metrics. We'll see the life cycle in future. So as a first cut, what I do is I will create a folder. I'm calling it as images, and server-side encryption we will discuss in the next episode. But right now you have an image here, and let me upload one of the file. Add files. So let me go to this one. S3 where I have a lot of documentation and images. Let me upload one of this here. So destination, it says that this is the bucket, and the destination details, it gives the bucket version is disabled because as we are not discussing that, no point in discussing that. Okay, here if you want to give some specific information to this particular object or file, it doesn't allow. It says that the bucket owner enforce these rules. Okay, and also the storage class we will discuss. It needs a separate discussion. The storage class, what it means. It's like a trade-off between how fast do you access versus the storage cost. So that's a lengthy discussion. So we'll not get into that right now. But let's go ahead and upload this file. Okay, let it upload this file. So once this file has been uploaded, we can see this. Let's click on that. So this is the file which we have uploaded that. And the pretty important point here is key. So the key, it says that images slash .NET 6 underscore S3 PNG. So it goes by the key and the object. That's pretty important. So this is the object URL. If I copy that and if I try to access it, it will not allow. So even if I give you this URL, you'll not be able to access that. But there is one option which it gives. You can download this, okay, or you can open. So this one, you can see this. This guy is injecting the token kind of thing. Okay, so you can see this security token is injecting in this. So that's the difference. If you go and see this previously when we are trying to access, that's the endpoint. This is the URL. So here in this URL, on top of that image, this guy is putting the content disposition as well as the security token. That will have a lifetime. I mean, it's not like a unlimited lifetime offers. It's like a limited time that will be enabled, so we can get through it. That's one of the ways you can go and access that. Okay. So let's see some other things here. Let me come back to this one. So even though we create folder, but technically if you go into this folder and you see this properties, here you're not able to do anything like a set the permissions or download or anything. But you need to get into that object or a file where you can specify this permission. Okay, I can do something over this. So the access control list, you can see that only the owner has got read and read write. On object, I can read, and object access control list read and write. But I can't do anything. Technically, it is a folder, but it's just a flat, as we have seen that. Right now, I go here. I want to upload a couple of things. There are multiple things to experiment here, so I just wanted to take some time to go through it. So go to documentation, starter files, S3 uploads. I will upload only these two, sample and sample one. This I'm putting it in the root folder. And let's not discuss about the permission as of now. Let's directly put it. And we'll come back. We'll revisit again and again when we are doing it from multiple places. And each time you go and select something, the key thing you need to observe is the key. So this is the key with which it recognizes this particular object. And the rules of the games are same. You copy this and try to go and access it, you'll not be able to access that. Okay. So one of the ways to do, it's not the only way, but I'm telling it's one of the ways to do it is I'll come to the bucket. I go to permissions and I'll do an edit on this. But please be careful. Ensure that you are knowing what you're doing it. Okay, block public access to this bucket and objects granted through any access control list. So as of now, I'm just selecting that particular option and I do confirm. Okay, now that it changed. So you can see that that shows a warning kind of thing. Now come back to objects and now try accessing this. You will still not be able to access that. Okay, so now let's come back to this and let me select this sample and objects action. Let me select this actions. Just give it a minute. Sometimes it takes time. So here it is not matching exactly with this. So let's wait So let me come back to this one, edit. I'm sorry, I have selected a wrong option. Sorry for that. It was my mistake. So I uncheck that particular option. Okay, you can see that uh, block public access to buckets and objects granted through any access list. That's the only thing I unblocked it. Now let's come back to this and select the sample. Go to the actions and you scroll down. You should see it. Sometimes it takes time, but sometimes it takes time. Let's come back now and go to actions. Ah, see that it clearly shows this objects can be public. Wow. Just give me 1 minute. Let me do a full refresh. Else we'll enable the other one also. Because the thing is that I want to show the difference. What will happen if you enable one option and you don't enable other? Okay, that's not working. No problem. Let's go back. Let's go back and edit this. I want to uncheck that also. Confirm and save that. Now let's come back to objects and let me select that object and ah, okay. Ooh. Okay, let's go to this level. Doesn't show. Bucket owner enforced. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to select this. Okay, I give that permission. I will come back here and go back. I need to enable that. I'm sorry. And then come back to edit and enable only that particular option. Enable only that particular option and disable rest. Now come back to this objects because that enforce is a key piece, which you can see this. Now I make this public. Since access denied, let's give it a minute. Sometimes it takes time. So we're given everything which is needed. So if you go to this, you can see we've enabled that and see this, the bucket permission is there. Let's try this. If not, I'll enable the other option also. Make this a public. Okay, let's enable that. Technically, it should allow with that one option also. Let's enable the second one also. So let me go back to the permissions and edit. And this is for the new permissions. Now come back to this, select make public, that is there. Okay, I switched the order, that was my mistake. Now you can see this. Now if I come back to this bucket again, if I come back to this bucket and if I try accessing the second file or that image, this is a sample 2, it doesn't. But right now we have given permission only for this particular file. So it's like a granular level permission. And now another thing to observe here is, now what if I upload the same file and one new file? So sample and sample 3. The sample already exists. So at this point of time, we can see this. Here also we can specify the public grant here. But when you're uploading, by default, it removes that. So by default, it uploads the file with the private access. So what will be the impact is, once you go back to this particular file, the sample file, which we were seeing previously. Now, when you upload the next version, it blocks it. So what we have to do is, again, we need to come and select one or two files and go here and click on make public. So at this point of time, if you see that sample 2, it doesn't. Sample, it does. Another one was sample 3, isn't it? Let's see that in the file over here. Sample 3. So you can see that that's how the granular level of permissions we can set that. So let's do that real quick. I will go back to this and I want to delete this container. I'll select it and I delete it. Will not delete it because the container is not empty. Okay, so cancel this, come back over here. So one thing what you can do is select that and click on empty. So it says that permanently delete. So click on that. So that will empty all the files, and then you go and delete that. Cool. It's that easy. Let's see this. This is already existing one. So you can see the permissions. Here the permissions is there, and this one is also there. So now let's try on an existing which is already configured with the permission. The one which we did is we didn't have the permissions. We have to go and fix step by step. Okay, so let's upload. We have uploaded both the files. I close it. Now let's go back to the permissions again and click on edit. So we'll try this one more time. So technically we are having only one option. We uploaded two files. Okay, the permissions, objects can be public and block public access, that we enabled one. So I select this and click on make public access. It fails. So again we need to come back and fix the two things over there. So that will give us access to individually these two options. If you select, that should be good enough. The only thing catch is either you upload a new version or a new file, that will be, you'll be able to allow it. Like if it is an existing file, I'll say make public access. That will allow or if I am uploading a new file, here I'm uploading this, and from here itself in the permission I can say that grant public access, and I say that I understand what is the risk. I click on upload. So once you upload, you can go and change uh, its permissions to make it public, or you can set it while you are uploading itself. But the thing is that before that you need to have the proper permission. This is from another bucket, so I will like this, you're able to see. Okay, so let's quickly go and dismantle all the buckets so that we can start experimenting a few other things. So let me do empty. Let me permanently delete it so that we can execute some of the other commands. Go to the next segment of this session. That's gone. Okay, that I'll delete it. Okay, without knowing, I just clicked some other option. It's my mistake. So let me delete this real quick, and let me empty. Let me delete that. That's this one. And there's your CLI. The next segment, we'll quickly go there. I delete all this. Okay, I'll leave it there. So the next thing is, let me open the command prompt, and let me go to the D drive, AWS. It doesn't recognize. So AWS CLI. Let's click on this AWS CLI, and we need to install that AWS CLI. AWS CLI install on Windows. That's one simple simple command. It does pretty good installation. So you can see this. Just copy this command and execute it. In the meanwhile, we can discuss while it is executing this CLI. Okay, so just wanted to show that we don't have the CLI and it installs. Okay, now let's come back to our discussion. So we saw that what are this S3 buckets and objects, and we saw how do we create buckets and objects in console, and how do you delete, and also accessing the buckets. We saw that these are the two options which we need to enable, but we tried different options by enabling this in multiple combinations. We tested it, but net what should happen is it should have this one. And another thing to notice, when you're uploading for the second time, you need to ensure that the options to make it public will be, by default it will be disabled. You can upload the file and then you can give the permissions, or you, while uploading itself, you can give the permission based on that, and you should know what will be the impact of that. Okay, ensure that it's not a destruction which will cause. Okay, that's pretty cool. It has got this AWS. It will not recognize because we have installed it just now. I'm saying AWS. There you go. It installs. Okay. So now there are multiple things, but we'll just quickly touch upon because we need time to discuss on C# programming also. So just there are different things. We'll quickly run. Oh God, I removed all these things. No problem. That should be fair enough. So you can use this high level S3 commands. So if you go and see this uh, S3 commands, you can see you can create a bucket. Like as we mentioned that it should be globally unique. So Amazon S3 MB make bucket like a MKDAR or something like that. List the buckets ls, and here you have an options, and you do an ls, or you can specifically mention that what is the bucket name, but the format should be this, because that's what the format which we have seen when we created some buckets. uh, that's how the files were existing there. So let me go and refresh that, and you can see when you get into the file, any of the file, how does it acts, shows that S3 URI, it shows like this, right? So it shows that way. So we need to use the same thing. Another one is like low level APIs are there. That's one thing. And another thing is this one S3 API. That's the low level. And what is the difference between both? We'll spend 30 seconds at a high level. Or did I misplace the URL? Looks like I did it. Both are coming to the same thing. But let's see this one. So there is something known as S3 and S3 API. So technically, the difference is that S3 is at a high level. It uses this one. You can see this command. The main difference between S3 and S3 API commands is that the S3 commands are not solely driven by the JSON object model. That's the one. And also, it uses, if you see that as this one, these commands for high level features are not provided by S3 API commands. Let's see that and understand it in hands-on mode. Okay, so the first command I will go and execute is AWS version. Okay, I'll keep this like AWS version. So that gives me what is the version of that. And let's go. Wow. Let's go and check this. Do we have that bucket? Let me check that. Do we have the bucket or not? We don't have that bucket. What all the buckets do we have at this point of time? So we have bucket June V1. Okay, that already exists. So I created that command which already exists. Now I can do ls. So list all the buckets. So it lists both the buckets. Okay, if I want to see what is inside this bucket, so I can click that and I type it. You see this, the format is pretty much a pretty much simple row kind of thing, like AWS S3 ls S3 colon, and you can, when I do that, what is that? It's giving a lot of junk. Okay, told. Okay, here instead of S3, I told S2. That was my mistake. Now, if I do AWS S3, now you can see that the files which we have it shows this file. And you can see these commands here. So if I go and execute these commands, it will show what all the files we have it here. And we can go into multiple levels. What all the folders do we have? And that S3 API is a little bit different, which you will see. It gives a format in JSON. You see this, and I do. There are two buckets. It says that one is this bucket, one is this bucket. When did we create, and who is the owner who created it? And also, if I go and try getting all the objects inside this, you will see that different objects you'll get it. So this is how we interact with this one. Another important thing is AWS Explorer tool in Visual Studio 2022, and that will take a couple of minutes, not more. And you can see this. There is, I can refresh and check this. All the buckets which are there in AWS console, we'll see those buckets. And if you want get deep, you can click on browse. You see the sample files folder which we saw, and these are the three files. You get into this and you see the sample files, and you see this. So you can navigate this. The same way is here. I can come back to this, and you can enable. This is AWS tool in Visual Studio Code. So I can come into this, expand this one bucket, because that's in Ohio, and in Northern Virginia there is another bucket. That's the bucket which we saw has got some sample files. So there's a slight difference in the tools. So I can get this. If you see the Visual Studio 2022, it doesn't differentiate between these two buckets here, because it's treating the same way how the console treats it. Even though if I come back to this buckets, it's not seeing the difference like this is from Ohio, this is from Virginia. It says that okay, you have two buckets. The same thing, the Azure AWS Explorer. I'm sorry, I'm from Azure world, so the same thing this AWS Explorer is doing. It's not differentiating. Even though I selected this, rest of the things, if you see that EC2 instances, I can get into the EC2 instances over here. It particularly shows that. Oh, geez, this is running. Okay, I will terminate that. I don't need it. So you don't need to go to console. You can do it from here. It nicely recognizes that. Okay, that's the another segment. So we'll go to the final segment of that. Okay, see here you have to choose which region it is. That's the only catch it is. Suppose if you want to enable, if you want to enable more regions, you need to go and get that. Okay, AWS, these tools are there which you can go ahead and definitely enable that. That's only small difference, but the tools are pretty good. Visual Studio and VS 2022. That's pretty cool. We'll go to the final segment of this, and we'll see that. Programmatically, how do you create it? We'll see here. And this entire code, I did a straight lift from AWS docs, and I did a slight facelift to it. The small facelift, this is in .NET 5, and the one which I copied the code from the sample of AWS and created this sample here. Okay, so let's see that. The first thing is we have two things. One is the utility. So each of this utility will do one action. It creates a bucket, it uploads a file, and it downloads a file. Okay, so how do we know that how to create all these things? So that's pretty simple. Okay, now you can go back to this documentation and click on this S3 and then go to this user guide. Okay, so there is code samples and click on actions. Now create a bucket. Click on that and select your programming language. So the same number of lines, you see that here. It's nothing new. It's just a straight lift. You can do it and customize it. See these 3 lines. It creates the put bucket request and it creates this. That's it. Exactly same number of lines. So I selected 3 of those things. Okay, and on top of that, I need to show a couple of other things. This is .NET 6, and we are using the app settings. So that means if I come back to this one, this is app settings file, and you see that I made it as a content, right? That's the only thing, and I have created a upload folder. I created an upload folder. Let's go uh, into this in today's session and source basic demo into this and bin debug .NET 6. So I'll remove that and keep that, or I can remove this one also, uploads also, that it should technically create it. So the first thing what it does is it loads the app settings, and I'm using the secret user secrets also. I'm reading the bucket name and file path. So you can see that in app settings JSON, bucket name is this, which doesn't exist, and uploads is sample 26 June 2020, this text. So let's come back to this one, and you can see this. Okay, I will say that just before demo. Okay, just added one more content. I close everything, and let's come back over here, and let's go to this S3. One thing I forgot to mention, when you're creating the buckets programmatically, whether through CLI or anything, just let's see that one quick thing. I forgot to mention that. I'm calling it as V2. So AWS S3 make bucket, I'm saying V2. So when I execute this command, it created this make bucket. We'll come back and we'll do a refresh. So here it created, by default, you see this, it has opened this bucket to wide open. Okay, anyone can sneak in now. It removed all these things. It enabled this public access, and it also unchecked this option. Now all the things whichever you created is this one. So when you're creating programmatically, please ensure that you're fixing any of the loose ends. If your intention is to have the public objects in this, that's well and good. If not, please keep a watch on that. The same is applicable programmatically whatever we are creating, because we need to pass additional things. That's one tip. Now coming back to this one, here is this create bucket. So we'll see step by step. We'll go from here till here till here. Okay, hope that this doesn't time out. Let me execute this real quick. And the coding is straight lit from that, except that the template is .NET 6. The AWS template is fine. Rest everything is straight lift from AWS documentation. So let me execute that and give it a minute. It gives us a control back. You see that? That's a bucket name, and there's a file path. So let me do an F11. So it created the bucket now. It's success. So let's click on continue. It comes in here. Let's come and verify whether the bucket is available. There you go. The bucket is available, and it created publicly accessible. Right? So the next thing, let's get into this. So it's uploading the file. So that's the key name. It should be unique, global unique. If so, let's continue on this, and you can see that it has created the bucket and it has uploaded the file. Let's come and verify this real quick. In here, you see this. So I select on that and click on open. This is with the token, folks. So just before demo, we wrote that. And now we'll come back to this. Here we see we don't have the downloads folder. That's in bin. Now let's go to the next piece where we go and download this file. So let's downloading the file, and it, you see that successfully downloaded the file in green color. And at the same time, you can come and see that we have a downloads folder and we have these 3 lines. Okay. So now what if I execute it for the second time? I'll come in here and I'll execute that. Now you see it says that could not create because it already exists, right? So now I'm uploading it again and I'm downloading it again. So you can see that creation failed, but it uploaded and it downloaded. So now if I come back to this downloads folder and come back to the downloads folder, and if I see that it has appended this. Okay. Now again, now that it has created this bucket wide open, we can do is assume that it will work now seamlessly. Come back to this and make public. Okay, it did it. And I can come back to this one, and the key should be unique, folks. Now I see this, and there you go. Cool. So that is from my side. So guys, all the instructions and including the references from where I have customized this application. It's not customized, I did just a very few minor tweaks, but it's just a straight lift from AWS documentation. And everything is explained in this. I have already pasted it, but if you guys want it, I will paste it for the second time, the link, so you guys can go ahead and grab it and play with it. So sorry, Jagdish, I took a little bit time, and thanks for patiently waiting.
Yeah, but we got much information and more knowledge by seeing the sessions.
Oh, I enjoyed working in this one. I mean, actually, the plan was, as we discussed, the plan was only for C sharp, but I thought, let me try the CLI, and
Yeah,
that too,
that
why
was
to see.
that was a shocking part actually.
And I wanted to do live. If it fails, let it fail. So I said that, okay, I don't have this. Let me install and do that.
Yeah,
But I enjoyed.
because usually so we are into the .NET world, so the PowerShell scripting and all those things are familiar with us with the Azure and all those things. Seeing the same thing with the AWS, like wow, so like it's the same environment, like the feel, native feel.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, I mean, V3 from Azure world, but trying our hands on multi-cloud. It's good. Uh, Back to you, Jagdish. You can share your screen. We'll hit the road.
You can see my screen, right? So
Uh, I flashed it.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess. So today we discussing about deploying a sample .NET Web API. So as a microservice using a Beanstalk. So we'll discuss deep into it. So so we have this meetup group. So where we can catch up the next upcoming events too. So .NET Learner House. So before going to this, there are a couple of things like prerequisites. So you should be familiar with like at least .NET. So the MongoDB. So the Beanstalk. Although I'll explain those things. So please what are there in this topic. And we are using Visual Studio 2022. So we are using C Sharp, DocumentDB, so MongoDB, Atlas, so and AWS deploying. We created a Beanstalk Elastic Beanstalk and deploy our .NET 6 Web API application to the AWS. So technology stack. So as I mentioned previously, so Beanstalk and MongoDB. So this is about me. As in my introduction, so I said that like I was completely on .NET and Azure. So the AWS word, I'm new. So if I do have some mistakes, please excuse me. So you can ask questions related to any topic anytime. So mostly this complete session was mostly on the demo. So how to create this, how to connect to that, and how to deploy it, and how to access to everything. So today we'll Beanstalk. So first topic is like Beanstalk. What is Beanstalk and MongoDB? So the Elastic Beanstalk. So in general, so if you want to host in a website or on a simple web API, so if you see in the Windows world, so you'll have IAS, so where you www root, so where you deploy your deployable version of that application, you configure it, you do all the configuration, you expose a port, specify it with a local host, so you do it. So in the Linux environment, we can use Nginx, Apache Tomcat, whatever the choice you have, the expertise you have, so all this thing. So the behind thing is so there is a lot of configuration is required and all those things were required. So with the help of Elastic Beanstalk, so we don't need to do the behind things like the configuration and all those things. The advantage of this is very simple. You have a code which is working in your local and you want to that to be deployed, so you just deploy it. So it will give you the URL. So where it as exposed, you can access it directly. So you don't need to configure IAS, Apache Tomcat, Nginx, expose specific ports or the configure security and whatever the things you can do it. So these are the couple of benefits we get with the Elastic Beanstalk. It is a fast and simplest way. The thing is, you can deploy it from your Visual Studio. Yes, so you can deploy it from the Visual Studio, right from Visual Studio into AWS. So we'll show you. I'll show you the demo of it. It helps you to enable focus on writing code rather than spending time managing and configure the server sector, etc. Like IAS, Apache Tomcat, Nginx, and all those things. This Elastic Beanstalk is more of a platform as a service kind of thing. So whereas previously the EC2 is more of a infrastructure as a service, whereas a Beanstalk is a platform as a service where you can deploy your the thing. The there are multiple couple of options like you can scale up your application based on the specific needs, but like based on CPU usage, memory, or the number of traffic. Based on that, you can configure it. You can auto scale those options were available. So we will discuss that in the next upcoming sessions. But for now, we stick with understand so what is Beanstalk and how to deploy it a simple application. So the behind what is happening is so it is using EC2. So when you create a bin stack, it will go behind, it will create an EC2 instance and it is attached to it. So all the configuration, everything is done by AWS. We just simply use this EC2 version and deploy the code. So whatever the you develop. So, and we are also using MongoDB, and we are connecting that MongoDB to our .NET Web API. So before that, so we need to just a brief introduction of what is MongoDB. It's more of like a NoSQL database program. So it is of a simple JSON-like data document. So if you if you see how the data is categorized in general, so there is a structure, there is a semi-structure, and no not structure. There is no structure of it. For a structured, so we'll see mostly of the relational databases. So similar like tables with the relations which they have to it, and semi-structured like MongoDB, like document DB. So no SQL. So what we say. So there are a couple of information were available. So this is a bit. It's not semi structured. So all this information was available to you, but it is if it is a small structure, so you can easily understand the relation of it. If it is a bigger, the complex one, so it is difficult to figure it out. So what is the relation between the information and one to another, unless you know the business details more clear. So this is a sample. So if you are more into the relational database and you want to understand so how the non semi-relational like MongoDB, NoSQL, how it can be. For example, we have in a tables, we have multiple tables. So where the one table is like a person table. So where it gives the information about person name, personal details, and date of birth, and so the location where he stays, and was what is profession, and based on the profession, so what he develops. He's a developer, so he creates couple of applications. He was engineer, so he works with multiple companies. So whatever these companies. So if you put the same information in the MongoDB, so how it looks like, every information is available here. The first name, last name, contact information, the location information, but it represented in a different way, like type, point, coordinates. It's a more sophisticated way, like so easily you can get it, like coordinates, what is this. Once in the relational database, once we built it, then only we can understand it better. So how the relations with the professional details. So based on it, so what are this specific thing, so app, so if the cars he is having, like all this information. So this is how the relational and the NoSQL, how it looks like. So we'll just go to the differences of it. So it's a relational database management system. It is a distributed database system. We can vertically scalable. So, but with the cloud advantages, we can also do the horizontal scaling is also available with the SQL and shredding. There are multiple options were available, but in the legacy previously, so when the new NoSQL was there, so it was only the vertically scalable. So where you only increase the capacity of that particular mission. So where you install your SQL application, where it can be horizontally scalable, because all this information is available as a collection documents. It is a fixed predefined schema, and it is a dynamic schema, so like it can varies. So for example, like so everybody will fill the tax information, the personal taxation information. So every year there might be few columns, or the options will be varying, like new values are added, old values are removed. So every time, so every new financial year, so those informations are modified. So it is not very fixed, so it is changing based on the new laws, no amendments, new. So what are the policies and everything. So if it is a continuously changing one, so better you can choose a NoSQL than as SQL, because from the case to case we need to choose SQL or NoSQL. So we're not discussing about which is better on what. So based on the requirements, we need to choose. So which is what. So this is a simple case. Like if it is continuously changing, so better go with the NoSQL. So it can allot it. For example, here we can add few more details to it. So the same document, we can add the few more details. But if you want to add the same details into the relational database, you need to add a a table, and you need to create the relations to it. So for empty values, like the previous legacy old values, so we need to fill up like our default values and everything. So this is an extra burden for us. But whereas this, so there's no extra burden for us. We just simply add those details to it. Which SQL can be used for complex queries. Like we get a complex query, we can connect to multiple tables and get the information out about everything. So all those things. And it is not good for complex queries, but when fetching the details for a specific user information, it is a quick, faster compared to the SQL. How we can relate? So if we are into this relational database world, so database, we say it is a database. Tables, here we call it as a collections. The rows, we say it is a document. So each document has contains all the information. So previously, this is a document. So one document. Columns, we say it is a fields, specific JSON fields that were available to you. So this is what about MongoDB and Beanstalk. So next we'll talk about Mongo Atlas. So Mongo Atlas is a cloud version of it. So because we can install MongoDB in your local, there is a community version available for the free download. So you can download it and you can use it in your local. But MongoDB Atlas was a cloud version, so where you can deploy, you can manage your resources, you can handle everything. Where you can create your resources in whatever the choice you have. Like you can do that in AWS, Azure, GCP, and you can access it anywhere, and you can connect it locally, and you deploy it to the Beanstalk. So you can connect it there. It's also like the same application reflected in local and in the cloud environments. That's easy for the development and all these things. So we'll simply go to this MongoDB Atlas. So you can just simply MongoDB download. So this is MongoDB Atlas. This is a MongoDB Atlas. You can do it at free version. So currently I'm using the free version, the shared version. You can do a sign up. So they won't charge you. So only if you go for the production versions, that will be charged. So once I log into it, so this is my landing page. So where I was there. So this is my version. So you can have multiple organizations where you can differentiate the multiple tenants of those information. For the projects, so you can create the sample project, so to which your application was available. So here we have a database. So you can see the database, all the database available for your project. So here I created a cluster 0. So you can create your own. So you do this create. It will ask for you this three options were available to you. You want to go with a serverless, dedicated version for you, or the shared version. So if you observe all this version, so it is giving you the option to select the cloud provider. So I'm selected the shared version because it's a free of cost. It doesn't charge me. So, but I'm limited to fewer storage and fewer calls I can make. So, but that's okay for my the POC kind of thing, or this training or learning purpose. So as of now, I selected AWS because we are deploying it to the Beanstack. So I selected AWS. It doesn't mean that you only need to select AWS. You can choose the Azure space also, but more of a native thing. So I selected AWS. So you can select the region also. So like a space where you want to do it. So here the dedicated regions, recommended regions, everything was there. So you can select those things, and so you can do the sizing, and if you want to do the additional settings like backup and all those things, and you want to have this name of it, and do the create cluster. So I'm not doing that now, so because I already created one. So once you click on the create cluster, the once the cluster is created, that is available here. So you can see this way, the cluster. So I'm seeing connected the cluster. So there are multiple ways to connect to your cluster, like the specific the thing. So we can do the connect. It will show you three options: whether you want to connect with a MongoDB shell or connect your application like a .NET 6 Web API. So the basically it will give you the connection string for you. So and connect using MongoDB Compass, the another GUI graph for MongoDB. So I'll simply select um, connection string. So you can select multiple thing, multiple programming languages and the versions. So it will give you the connection string for you. So if you observe here, so it is not showing the username and password, which we will create in the next step. So just copy it. Now here, if you go to the security, there is a database access. Here I have a couple of there are two users which I already created. So you can create a new user. You can have multiple option, password, certificate, AWS IAM, identity access management, because we already created in the AWS environment. It's easy for us to integrate the native, the feel of it. Like we can use the AWS integrated access management. So password authentication, we can generate the user auto generate a password for us. We can give the like demo user. So you can copy the password here. You can do the copy. So just saving it and also saving the username. So we can also give the roles. So where you want to, what access he's having, read and write to any database, or an admin access, only read any database. So you can have a custom role specification, and you can also restrict access to it. Then you just add the user. So the user got added to this, the demo user. The previously in the database here, we copied the connection string. So let's do a copy it again. So you just replace username with a demo user. That's it. This is your connection string. So you can put it in our app setting file. So where you will be able to connect to that database. So we'll do that in the next step. And here we have network access also, like which IPs that we can access to it and everything. Like if you are connected to local, so or you want to specifically a specific IPs you want to connect, then you can restrict it here. So you can do this from your local. So add current IP address. So that I was already there, so I'm using it. So you can do it. So that's it. So if you are not able to access it because of network access, you can also do here by adding your IP address. You can do it. Whereas in the AWS, so generally it will allow it. So if you don't allow it, like if it doesn't allow it, you can add that specific IP address based on where your application was hosted. That's how we created the MongoDB database. So just go to the database. So we can also see the monitoring. So what is happening? So how many members are accessed? How the graphs were there. So all the information, so which we can you can configure it. This is the advantage with the cloud. So where you can monitor your logs, complete information in a matter of time. And in the previously, I mentioned that here the tables were collections. I created a collections here. So let's navigate to it and see what are the collection I created. I created a bookstore database with the books as a collection name. So I have a couple of records. So you can see that the name, price, category, author. So this id, object id, this was automatically generated. So once you add few information, for example, I'll just copy it. I'll do insert document. You can do it from here also, from directly uh, from this navigation. I'll do insert document. This id is not required because it automatically generates for us. We don't need to create it. This is something like index, the primary key we can call it as. So by this id value, so it will reflect that particular document. It will fetch us the information for us. Yes. I'll make this as a version 2 because version 1 is already there. Okay, let's do this. Correct the JSON format. It's simple JSON, so you can easily know so the mistakes and all those things. Do insert. So you can see the document was inserted here, right? So this is about MongoDB Atlas. So we'll next move to the .NET 6 Web APIs, how to create it. So just study for it, demo time. So I'll open my Visual Studio. So I'll create a new project. Select for Web API. So as per turn on core. Next, my books API. So next. So for now we're not doing any authentication. So just leave as it is. So most of the time, we use as it is. So we don't select a specific thing. So as defaulted values. And do a create. I know. So sometimes it will take more time to create this projects. So I already have the solution which is available to me, the sample. So by default, it this is my books API. By default, it will have this sample controller and weather forecast system. So what I made is I made a few changes to it. So this is my application actually. So I know my database. So I make MongoDB. So where I created a books database and the collection name was books. So I created a model. There is a book. So where I am ID as a string. So this key was an ID which is as a string, and we have to specify the bson ID, bson representation, which is of object ID, so that it will not like a inside object that was there. So it will take as a specific object. So in order to have this bson ID, so we need to install a NuGet package called Mongodb.driver. I just installed the latest version. So what are the latest version? So you have, so while doing this, so you can install the latest version. Having this book name, so all the other elements, the price, category, and author. So all this information. Just I created a Poco class for this, and I have an app settings.json file where I have this connection string with his username and password, the same which I copied from the MongoDB Atlas. So where I filled the username and password here. So where here I didn't pass. So I created this bookstore database which has a connection string and with the database name which I want to access and what is the collection name for it, books collection name. I also created a bookstore database settings where the purpose class for this like connection string database and books collection name. What I did is next in the program file, I configured this book database settings and use the get section method so to fetch that particular information. So all this what are the values available here, that is auto filled pre-filled here as configuration is a singleton that is available throughout the application scope from the runtime. So next thing is I created a book service where all these CRUD operations like adding, updating, getting, deleting all these operations that were there. So in the book service, so I am calling that specific bookstore database settings, the thing. So because I already injected it in my dependency injection, so I can refer here using an I option using Mongo client. So I'm just reading the connection string. I'm passing those values. So once the client was done, so I'm passing the database value and I'm fetching the collection name and collection name was book. So more of similar like so how we do it in the entity framework. So you do the similar way. So I have written a couple. There are a couple of methods. Get async. So where you want to find a book specifically. So it will fetch all the books information to us. And if you want to specify book by ID, only a specific book. So you can pass the ID value. It will check with the ID and it will give you the output. You want to insert new book, so just pass the object, the book object. It will do it. If you want to update, just pass the ID and the book value. So it will do that. And remove, so which is a delete. So just pass the ID value. So it will delete all this method. So I have written it in my book service. Now the next part is my controller. So this is where so it has an API endpoints which is exposed, so the people will use it. So this is my simple API controller. So I have a get method, so which fetch all the books information. So whereas in this get method by calling an by passing an ID, so it will fetch the information, post, update and delete. So for now, I'm just running it by default. So what is available to it? So I'm running using my IS Express. You can see here. So let it run. So here my IS Express is running. So it is running on 4.4.34. Let's wait for it to complete the run. So we have multiple options to run this application. So using IS Express or Custard. So where you have the lighter version of server in your local, so where it will run. So instead of IS Express. So let's see. So it is completed or not. Yes, it fetched. By default, so with the .NET 6, so you create a web API, Swagger is inbuilt. So you can do it that way. So, uh, so I added what are the connection strings available to my app settings file, the connection required settings, the similar way which I mentioned the example app setting files. So let's do a try it out and do an execute. Yes, all this information is available to you. Like So there are four records that were available to me. So all those were available. So you can call this using a Swagger, or you can test in your Postman also. For example, so I think I need to check this port. The port which currently using is 44334. So only that. I'll do a duplicate tab and do a send. So I can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. All this information were available to me. So if you remember, the same information is available in the database. The log all the full records. So what we do is we s- update few records. For now, I'm just stopping it. I'm just showing you the other option to run this application. So you can directly book storage here. So this is the Kestrel. So here the IS Express is not there. So see, it is open a command prompt, which it is a lighter version of the server, so which will run it. Here the port is different, so compared to the IS server. So while testing that in the Postman collection, we need to modify the port numbers. So which you are testing. See the same information. Try it on. Execute. Yep. It is able to return all this information, and you can see. So you can see the switch port is exposed like 7103 for HTTPS and HTTP 5103. So all this information is available. So do the same thing in the Postman. Don't see get books. Just do a call. So it fetch all this information. There are total four records. What we'll do is, so we'll fetch a record by its ID. So I'm just passing the ID value. So we will have this. So I want to delete a record. So I'm just passing the specific value. So before that, so I want to delete which record. So just collect this ID value and the delete. Just add this value. So in the URL and do a send. So that was not there. Okay, it was deleted. So the previously this version 1 was there. So now the version 2 was not there. So only three records were there. One, two, three. So now we add a new thing, new record. Here, when you observe, so when you see the get books, so the ID value was there. So, but when you want to create a new record, you don't need to add this the key value, the ID value. So it automatically done by um, MongoDB. So if you refresh it, so the collections, so it's loading. There is only one of three. So let's do a send here so that it will insert a new record. Yes, it was created 201. So the similar way, so the fourth record will be available to here. So just do a refresh. There's four records now. So you can compare this matching. So go to the get books and ascend. So you can see the fourth one. We can do this, but I'll do here so that we can compare it the same value. So till now we tested it, we ran it locally and we tested it on our local. So using multiple options, using IS and Custard, and we tested in the Postman and Swagger, so both worked fine. And we can also see the update changes. So everything is happening at the MongoDB Atlas. Now the next part is like create the Beanstack. So how to create the AWS Beanstack? AWS. This is my AWS. So the console. So once I log into it, so this is your landing page. So here I selected my specific region. So now I want to create a elastic beanstalk. So you can do it from here. You can check here, or from the services you can check this specific thing. So elastic beanstalk. So do an elastic beanstalk. So I already have one application which is running currently. So you want to have a new, you can do a create new environment. So whether which one you want, web server environment, do a select. So you can give this application name, my books API, books API, application tags with not the environment name, books API environment. So environment. So we can give the domain name specifically you want. So if you don't have any requirement, you can also do the check availability that was available. So it's a managed platform. So because it will do for you like managed platform. So you can choose which one. .NET Core on Linux. So the platform branch, the OS, by default it will select this Amazon Linux 2. So the platform version 2.3 recommended. So that is the only option available. You can have option like you can use a sample application which is provided by AWS, or you can simply upload your code. So we'll do it at the later position. So we'll simply create that. So before that, I'll open the same AWS in a duplicate, because so previously, so when I said, so it is in a platform as a service. So whenever you create a brain stack, so internally, so behind what is happening, there is an EC2 instant is also created. So I want to show you so whether it is created or not. So I'll simply go to my EC2. So I here you can check the how many number of instance running. So here I only have the instance one. There is only one instance. As of now, it is running. So I simply go here and create an environment. So it will take couple of minutes to complete the creation of this environment. So the previously created environments, everything, so you can access it here. It's API. This is my recent environment. Once the environment is created, so it will show you like this. So the environment was created, will show you this, where it will show you the URL here. So the exposed URL, so all those things, where you can click on it and you can access that specific thing. So meanwhile, we'll go to the Visual Studio and to check so how to deploy. So what are the multiple options that were available in the Visual Studio? So previously, so Swami has mentioned about Amazon Explorer, right? So the tools, extensions, manage extensions. This one. So you need to install this toolkit, AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio 2022. So once I already installed it, so you can see this tick mark, green tick mark. So I already installed it. So if you install it, So then you will have this AWS Explorer. So where you can search here also if it is not loaded, AWS Explorer. Oh, sorry, AWS Explorer. I'm too fast. Click here, so it will land you this. In Visual Studio, generally we will connect to the Azure Explorer. So similarly, you want to connect with the AWS Explorer. There are multiple ways. Like here, add. So I already connected to one of the thing. So we can do this. Add AWS credential profile. So we can give the profile name. It's as a demo. So where you need to pass the access key ID and secret access key. So which we'll get from the AWS. Simply go to my AWS. So we'll see so whether my environment is completed. Yes, we can see that my environment is completed. So just open it, and we use a sample application which is provided by AWS, right? Just access this application. See, so your first AWS application which is running on a .NET Core Linux application is running on your dedicated area to the AWS cloud. So that was done. But in order to deploy the code from your Visual Studio, so we need to have this credentials, access key and secret key. So to get those values, go to services, identity access management, IAM, go to the IAM. So we'll just refresh it because as I mentioned, so if you install or created the Beanstalk services, it will code behind it will create another instant, EC2 instant. So I'm just refreshing it so that whether I can see two instances now because previously it was only one. Yes, I can see there were two instances running. Previously it was only one. So the behind is what is happening is it is creating another one. So here you add an user. So I already created one. So let's do it another. Add a user. Username, my demo, programmatic access. So I'm not giving access to the console X, only the programmatical is only, so it can connect to this. So next the permissions. So I don't have any groups, the permission for the existing group. Or so I simply glue administration access. So you can give the specific information like you want to have like a AWS Beanstalk only, Elastic Beanstalk administrator access. You can give, you can specify the tags you want, but I'm just closing it. I'm just creating the user. The user will be created. So just copy this access ID, access key ID, and show the secret, copy, create. So you need to select the location also because once you log into this particular AWS account, so we need to specify so which location the instance were available because if your service has created in one region, so but you are looking at another region, so that will not be available. Where Swami has mentioned, only the S3 bucket has an option that where you can see the global option, so where you can see all the buckets available. But whereas the EC2, so this Elastic Beanstalk, so if you created that particular service in a specific region, only in that region, only it will be available. So make sure that so where your service was available. So you do the click OK. So It will list out all the information, and now you are connected to this. So I can have multiple things are connected to it. So, so I can shift over to this and
Hello, Jagadish. Hello. Oh, looks like he has some
ఎక్కడంటే ఎక్కడ పడితే అక్కడ.
internet connection. Okay. Hey guys.
I think so.
Looks like Jagadish has got some internet blip.
Yeah.
I think we can close now because sometimes what happens is we don't know the power comes up or not. So thanks guys for joining. And what do we have in the next month episode? So next month episode is we'll go more deep into that API. Whatever we deployed it using Elastic Beanstalk, we'll try the same in container Elastic Container Service and a little bit deep into S3. So we'll come towards more of microservices world. So that's it. So Anusha,
Yeah.
anything from your side, Anusha?
No, I'm actually glad to share this platform with you guys.
Oh, thanks so much. So let's do that in the next month's episode. Let's
Yeah.
go more towards the microservices, more towards the microservice in the next month episode. Hey Jagdish,
yeah, I lost power.
yeah, I understand. So I thought that to do a logical closure and start in the next month's episode, or do you want to continue?
So where I left, I don't know. So like I haven't. So till there.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Jagdish. Let's do more towards the focus more towards this Elastic Beanstalk, Elastic Container Services, and little bit deep into the S3 about the lifecycle management, S3 Glacier, and .NET 6 containers. How do you deploy it using Elastic Beanstalk? How do you do it using container service? Let's do a compare. How can we do all these things? So let's focus on that.
Yeah, maybe
So
GitHub.
any final words from Anusha or Jagadish?
Yeah, maybe we can like a GitHub with the GitHub Actions how to deploy, do a manual deploy. So
Yeah, right. Let's decide, but let's move more towards the microservices world. So
mhm.
maybe we introduce some of these new services and how do you deploy the .NET uh, apps or .NET microservices
Yeah.
using Azure, AWS or Azure, whatever services. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. See you in July month's episode
You can
.NET 6 with AWS. Bye.
post my
Thank you.
GitHub repository there. So, GitHub repository.
Oh yeah, paste it.
Yep, I done. So I also added the service collection also, like Postman collection.
Okay, 1 second. Let me post that. Hey guys, that's the GitHub link of Jagadish demo. Please feel free to grab this sample code. Have given my GitHub, Jagadish has given his, and let's move more towards the microservices. So eventually we will be doing microservices in multi-cloud, but this is our first step towards the AWS. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the weekend.
Yeah, thank you
Bye.
guys.
Thank you, guys.